Okay, so it's now been a little bit since 2xKO soft launched with its closed beta, and we've already seen an insane amount of combos. If you've been on FGC Twitter at all, I'm sure you've noticed these combos can get really complicated really quickly. If you ended up getting a closed beta code of your own, I'm sure you're eager to get into that lab and see what kind of combos you can make. But before you jump into training mode, there's just a few important things that you should know to help kickstart your labbing. Whether that be some of the universal combo rules in the game, figuring out what you might want in a combo, or how you should even begin putting your combo together. We're going to be covering all of that and more while we use my man Darius as an example. If you don't care about learning how to combo with Darius, that's perfectly fine. Once again, this video is filled with a ton of tips that you can use on any character. My hopes is that by using Darius as the example, we can start getting those cogs turning for your character, whoever that might be. With all of that being said though, let's go ahead and dive into some universal combo rules. Probably the most well-known combo rule for this game is that you can chain lights into mediums into heavies. You can take advantage of this by starting with your faster but lower damage buttons and then working your way up to the higher damage but slower buttons. But another important combo rule is that you can also do attacks into the same strength. For example, I can do crouching light into standing light, or crouching medium into standing medium, or the other way around, standing medium into crouching medium, and this works for every button strength, heavies included. This is actually a big reason why you're able to do light, medium, heavy launcher, because what is launcher really except a crouching heavy button? So by combining these two rules, you can get the universal combo of light, medium, heavy launcher, light, medium, heavy. Afterwards, you usually want to end with one of your special buttons. Overall, this is a really good route to get you started if you're not really comfortable with the fighting game format. But as you start to work your way up into the more complicated combo chains, you will start to utilize this fact in different ways. For example, Darius here can get light medium into 3 separate heavies for some pretty respectable damage. We'll go over the specifics of why this is important later, but just keep this in mind for now. Like any rule, there are some exceptions though. For example, some characters like Darius will have this really slow overhead hitting attack, and even though it's technically a medium button, it's so ungodly slow that you just won't ever be able to really combo into it. And in Darius's case, he actually can't even cancel this move into other moves either. One other thing that's very important to keep in mind whenever you're crafting your very own combo is hit stun scaling. When you're in training mode, you can actually turn on info display, as you can kind of see I have on the screen here, and it will actively tell you a bunch of different information about the type of move that you're using. One of the more important numbers to keep track of whenever you're crafting your own combo is that hit stun scale. Early on in a combo, it'll pretty much always stay at 100%, which effectively means that your opponent is taking 100% of the hit stun that they would from that move. However, if the combo ends up going on long enough, you will start to see that number go down, so you'll be a lot more limited in the options that you're able to hit your opponent with next. Unfortunately, I can't say I know the exact mathematics behind hit stun scaling as a whole, but generally speaking, there are a few factors to consider in your war with hit stun scaling. For example, if you throw someone and then find a way to continue the combo, they'll start immediately racking up hit stun scaling. And while I can't confirm or deny this, I have a sneaking suspicion that hitting someone in what's considered a juggle state has a much more drastic effect on the hit stun scaling of the combo, in comparison to if you were to just hit them on the ground, for example. As you can see here, the hit stun scaling is still pretty ripe. However, if that juggle state is induced by something that I would consider a combo extender, like a ground bounce or wall bounce for example, the hit stun scaling doesn't really seem to apply to it. You'll pretty much always get the same amount of hit stun out of the combo extender as you would anywhere else in the route. You'll still have to worry about the hit stun scaling after the hit, but the combo extender itself will pretty much always have 100% hit stun. Now, the moves that I would consider combo extenders typically come in 3 different flavors. You have your standard ground bounce, then you have your crumple or stun in some characters' cases, and then lastly you have your wall bounces. You may be thinking to yourself, well, if I always have 100% hit stun on these moves, why can't I just loop them forever? Well, that would be because of the in-game system of the limit strike. Limit strike pretty much just says if you attempt to use a second combo extender in your combo, that's not allowed. It forces your combo to end. However, as you can see, once you do the second combo extender, it does compensate you a little bit by giving you a good chunk of meter, both on your break gauge and on your super gauge. And just for full clarity, this isn't a limitation on the individual extenders. No, this is a limitation on combo extenders as a whole. As you can probably see in this example, I'm using a wall slump to extend the combo. However, if I try to use a ground bounce to extend the combo further, it'll hard limit it. With that much said though, I should mention that these are a per character basis. For example, I can do a ground bounce into a wall bounce on a different character. Whereas if I tried to do that same sequence on Darius alone, I would be limited by the limit strike. And the primary exception to this rule would be through the use of the Fury Break mechanic. As you probably could have seen, not only did Darius get the combo extender in the ground bounce, but he also got a wall bounce with the Fury Break. My hunch as to why that might be is because it's technically your teammate coming in and using their combo extender. Some more evidence as to why that's probably the case is the Juggernaut fuse, as when you do Fury Burst, you do it yourself. And because of that, as you'd imagine, whenever you attempt to do the Fury Burst in Juggernaut, it will induce a limit strike. Because now it's no longer your teammate coming in and providing you with their wall bounce. Because of the limit strike mechanics, in order to get as much damage as possible, a strong combo might look like you doing a lot of damage with your point using their combo extender and then tagging in your teammate and using their own combo extender, so long as the hit stun scaling permits it. One secret final combo rule that you may not know about is that people who subscribe to the RPS FGC YouTube channel gain extra aura when they knock someone down. Opponents are just too scared to mash on wake up against someone intelligent enough to subscribe to the channel. Doubly so if you like the video and leave a comment down below with the other big brain Darius players. Food for thought. Okay, that's good and all, but what exactly am I routing for? What makes a good combo? What am I looking for? Obviously, you want damage, that much is a given. We've already covered hit stun scaling a little bit, but damage scaling is also something you may want to consider. Much like hit stun scaling, you do less and less damage the longer the combo goes on, so you kind of want to front load a lot of your highest damage options. But whenever it comes to how much damage is enough damage, I think that there are three big thresholds you want to meet. Those being 500 damage, 750 damage, and over 1000 damage. If you're able to do a relatively consistent B&B that does roughly 500 damage, I think you'll be pretty well off. Especially if you use very little resources to do so. A vast majority of the characters in this game have 1000 or less health to work with. Meaning that when you account for burst, you can pretty consistently 3-touch your opponent. There may be a few instances where they swap out and get a good chunk of their health back, and you may need to combo them a 4th time because of that, but for the most part, as long as you're hitting that 500 damage threshold by only using 1 meter or 1 assist, I think you'll be pretty well off. Once you get to around 750 damage though, you're pretty safely in the 2-touch range. Since even if they burst, there's a good chance they're at least taking some damage before they do so. If they end up bursting really early on, that might not be the case, but you can play a bit of a mind game around that. For example, if I know this Jinx is going to burst as soon as I hit her in order to avoid getting 2-touched, I can simply hit her once, block, and then I get a pretty sizable combo afterwards. Not that was a bad example. But let's say, for example, you don't guess right and they end up bursting out. Even in this example where she guessed correctly and bursted before this combo happened, after this hit, she's left in a really bad spot where she can be chipped out by almost anything, even though she guessed right on the burst. And this is all assuming that she burst on the first hit. Obviously, this is a little bit more damage than the 750 range, but you still get the idea. You can still chip out or do a strike throw simple mix afterwards. And then obviously, if they guess wrong and you block the burst, you can just kill them in 2 touches anyways. Once you get to around 1000 damage though, you're pretty much guaranteed to 2-touch anyone in the cast, even if they burst the first hit of your combo starter. Usually in order to reach this benchmark, you'll need to pop Fury Break, or at the very least use all of the meter of one of your characters. Now, you may be confused as to why I say over 1000 damage is enough to reliably 2-touch someone. I mean, after all, I said not too long ago that a vast majority of the cast had less than 1000 health. Shouldn't this be a reliable way to, you know, touch of death someone? Well, you may have put it together by now, but it's because of the burst system. Reasonably speaking, if you are saving up that many resources, someone's probably going to end up saving their burst so they don't get touch of death. Now, you can still read this burst and proceed to Touch of Death someone, but for the most part, someone's not going to just let you Touch of Death them. They're going to end up using their burst at some point. And if they see you have the resources for it, they're probably going to wait until an area where you can't bait their burst. The only difference with over 1000 damage in comparison to the 750 damage is that with the 750 damage, you kinda do have to read if they're gonna burst or not if you still want to reliably two-touch someone. Whereas you can kinda just be belligerent with the over 1000 damage. You can guess wrong on the burst and then still proceed to go one-touch them afterwards. But there is one point that I would really like to reiterate on before we move on to what else you might want in a combo aside from damage. That being, so long as you're doing roughly 500 damage without super, you're going to be completely fine. Once you start including supers in the mix, the damage in this game really starts to level off, and hard. Even the most simplistic combos can start to break that 700 damage threshold once you start adding on that level 3 on the end, with most optimizations usually only giving you 20 to 30 damage, with an absolute max of usually about 100 once you start adding on supers. So because of that, I would say don't be afraid to prioritize being a little saucy in your combos. Do what you think looks cool. And if you really don't care about what looks cool, prioritize doing something that's comfortable and consistent, something that you know you won't drop. I kid you not, when I say I have spent literal hours in the lab trying to find out how I can optimize my combo, only to find a route that does one more whole damage. Or in some cases, routes that do the exact same amount of damage but are slightly easier on the execution. But aside from damage, another intuitively useful factor you may want to consider is positioning or corner carry. Now, it may seem obvious, but a combo routing that allows you to keep your pressure going is a top priority when considering what you want in a combo. Anything that allows you to keep that ball of pressure rolling. In a similar vein, one thing you may want to consider whenever it comes to keeping that ball rolling is finding combos that allow you to apply certain buffs or setups on your character, like Darius's wound debuff for example, or maybe even a route on Blitzcrank that allows him to end his combo with full steam. Even if your character doesn't have any buffs or anything they really want to set up at the end of a combo, you can always opt for Limit Break to build extra meter, typically at the cost of giving up on damage. While we're talking about meter, it's also important that your BNBs, or the combos you're going to be using most often, don't require too much meter in order for them to be effective. This is mostly for consistency's sake, as you don't want to be putting yourself in bad situations where you don't have the meter to cash out. Having a full resource dump Touch of Death combo is really cool and really flashy, but you want to make sure you have the meter to get there. For that very same reason, I would highly recommend that you practice your BNBs more than, say, your Fury Break combos. Whenever it does come to Fury Break though, I would highly recommend popping it as early as possible into the combo so that you're able to get the most out of the damage buff. Okay, so now that we know what we're looking for in a combo, let's go ahead and cover some of the tools that you'll be using to craft these combos, your attacks. In this section, I'll be using Darius' moveset as an example, but don't worry, there's plenty of concepts here that can be universally applied to any character in the game. So as I go over Darius' moves, be sure to ask yourself if your character has anything similar and consider how you might be able to use similar moves to optimize your own combos. Starting off with his lights, they're pretty run-of-the-mill normals that end up putting on a good amount of damage scaling when they're used in a combo. They are his fastest normals, so you want to make sure you're using them a lot in scrambles, but just know that if you do start your combos with it, your combos are going to have a lot less bite than they otherwise would. Whenever it comes to routing, you want to avoid using these moves as much as possible, as like I said, they add on a bunch of damage scaling. You really only want to use lights in areas where there's no other extension possible, or potentially near the end of a combo where the damage scaling it adds on won't actually matter all that much. You gotta be careful though, because sometimes even one extra light in a combo will make a combo not work because of the hit stun scaling. Not to mention the lights themselves don't actually give that much hit stun, so later into the combos, if you want to route into heavies, you're probably gonna have to do heavy into heavy. You really can't afford to just do light, medium, heavy when you're working with that much hit stun scaling. Darius in particular doesn't have any routes that require him to use lights, so you kind of want to just avoid using them unless you're in these scrambly situations. However, once again, if you're watching this guide with other characters in mind, you may need a light in order to branch into the rest of a combo. Moving on to mediums, mediums are arguably the best combo starters in the entire game. And this is doubly true for Darius. The reason being that they don't add on nearly as much damage scaling as, say, lights for example, but they're also relatively fast in scrambles as well, at least in comparison to your heavy buttons. but also they're just a really nice in-between of speed and range in comparison to the extremes of lights or heavies. There's also going to be plenty of situations where you may not be able to add on an extra heavy, but adding on an extra medium may give you just a little bit more damage. Of course, there are situations where adding an extra medium will add too much hit stun scaling and make them fall out of the rest of your combo, but that has to be addressed on a case-by-case basis. You're going to have to experiment and find out what combos that may or may not be. Whenever it comes to Darius specifically though, the only medium you're probably not going to be able to use for combos is his overhead. It doesn't directly combo from anything, so it's always going to be some sort of a mix-up. And then on top of that, you can't actually combo anything from it unless you want to spend an assist to do so. Although his heavies are likely too slow and limiting on block strings to be a starter in most instances, make no mistake, they are possibly the most important part of your combo game. To the point where I might argue that the entire point of a combo is to find out how many heavies and specials you can weave in for that fat damage. In order to effectively weave in as many heavies as possible, you're going to want to try to take full advantage of the fact that many command normals are tied to the heavy button, which makes it much easier to link heavy into heavy because of the insane amount of hit stun that they can provide. Every character in the game has access to their down heavy, which launches the opponent into the air for a brief air combo. But some characters, like Darius for example, have normals that launch the opponent into the air for a mini juggle. This mini juggle can even lead to him being able to land stuff like his 2S1 in the corner, or even call in an assist that hits specifically airborne opponents for extensions like blitzcranks. In situations where the opponent is already airborne, you can even jump cancel after the 6H, giving you an alternative combo for his jumping S1 routes that leave you closer to the ground, which is particularly good for getting the most out of this extension. Darius 6H also has some of the highest hit stun out of any of his moves, allowing for some crazy stuff like delay 3H for combos. One small disclaimer I should make whenever it comes to universal combo rules with Darius is the fact that because his buttons are so big, a lot of the times he won't be able to go into his launcher unless he's really close. Like even here in this situation, if I don't choose to go into the standing heavy, my down heavy will still whiff at the max range of my medium. So it's actually not that uncommon for the universal beginner combo route to just completely whiff on the character. So even though a lot of Darius's highest damage combo routes will come from this routing, it's pretty difficult to actually get this consistently, since most of the time you're going to be bullying people with your bigger buttons and standing at a range. One of the really good things about Darius 2H though is that during its startup and active frames, it's completely invincible to airborne opponents. And if he combines that with his other good anti-air in his down S1, he's able to control a lot of space above him. It should be noted that unlike 2H, if you connect medium heavy, it will pretty much always connect, making it a pretty consistent combo ender that helps you apply wound. Now, if you have to pick between doing one of your other heavies and doing 3H, it's usually better to just go with one of the other heavies. I say that because 3H not only can't route into the other heavies, but also because it just does blatantly less damage than the other heavies as well. So you want to slide it in if you can, but you shouldn't be giving up on the other heavies to do so. The last thing that I'll mention is that you do land his fully charged H. You will be able to dash cancel up and get a full combo, but you know, good luck landing this. In the air though, this does end up giving a wall bounce, so that's cool and pretty saucy, though I should mention currently nothing optimal has been found using charge H in the air. It is kinda style points though. You're not gonna see very many Dariuses go for this. Whenever it comes to special moves, a lot of what I'm gonna say is pretty Darius specific, so chances are if you're here for general combo tips, you might wanna skip forward a little bit. So for starters, let's go ahead and talk about Darius's S1 buttons. The main S1 button you're going to be looking at whenever it comes to crafting your very own Darius combo is going to be his down S1, since not only does it give a ground bounce for a combo extender, but as we established at the beginning of the video, you can also use it at the end of a combo for that extra meter whenever you go for a limit strike. Most of the time in your routing, the down S1 routes are going to do a little less damage and be a little less consistent and also struggle to put the wound debuff on your opponent. But unlike the wall crumple routes, you can indeed use these routes pretty much anywhere, no matter where you are on screen. Although one other downside to consider whenever you're trying to think about which combo extender you want to use is that sometimes in these further ranges, you're just not going to be close enough to land the knockup in order to go into the 2S1 in the first place. So, you know, it can be a little spacing specific if you want to go into that route. It's just not screen spacing specific like the wall routes would be, and that can be a big plus sometimes. Surprisingly enough though, some of your highest damage anti-air routes will come out of you landing 2S2 in neutral. This is mostly because the floor bounce you get from landing it as an anti-air always sets up the opponent in the perfect position for consistent follow-ups. Whereas anti-airing with 2H can be a little inconsistent depending on just how high you hit them. So despite this move immediately using your combo extender, I'd say don't be afraid to just fish for this as an anti-air in neutral, as you can get some pretty impressive damage with it. And as you've probably already noticed, his jumping S1 is also a very strong combo tool. It actually works as a really nice combo tool if you hit someone in a juggle state with a heavy button and then cancel that with a jump S1, allowing for some pretty saucy high damage extensions that you just can't get with any other move. Or if that's not quite your cup of tea, you can actually do launcher into heavy into jump S1 into delay heavy into imagination. Typically when I say imagination, I usually just mean heavies into special though, just for the max damage. For what it's worth, instead of the delay heavy, you can just do a charge heavy into a wall bounce, although the Darius community hasn't really found anything optimal with that setup. All things considered, it's pretty cool looking, just not the best in terms of the max damage combo extenders you could possibly get. Arguably though, looking cool is the most important part, so do what you will with that. Possibly the greatest strength of Jump S1 is its versatility and its ability to be used in a variety of different routes, with almost all of them leading to some of the highest damage that Darius has to offer. Now, we've talked about Jump S1 and we've talked about Down S1, but what about just regular standing S1? What does that do for us in combos? Shockingly, more than you might think. While you're pretty much never going to be able to true combo into the grounded pull variant of S1, if you put your opponent in the air via juggle state, it's another story. And sure, you can directly combo into either the throw and OTG off of that, or even the wound variant if you're really desperate to get that extra chip damage on your opponent. But potentially the coolest way to combo off of this is by using the light variant and the headbutt for a ground bounce. Now, full disclaimer, this is pretty much just a worse version of the down S2 ground bounce, as it does just do strictly less damage and the extra hits can make it harder to work in a combo with hit stun scaling. But one spot where it actually is pretty useful is at these further spacings where the down S2 will completely whiff, the headbutt will still be able to connect for the ground bounce. But outside of that specific spacing and the swag factor of it, there's not really a ton of reason to use this over down S1. As we start to move on to the S2 variants of Darius's moves, we start to approach some of the most crucial tools that make his combo game just so scary. A very simple but crucial part of Darius's combo game is the fact that he can link a medium after his forward S2. This allows you to carry the opponent from mid-screen and beyond and still be in a position to get the wall slump combo extender. If you use this link into the forward S2 into the immediate neutral S2, you will pretty much always get the combo extender regardless of spacing. There are some spacings and positions where you may want to opt for 2 neutral S2s, but honestly it does less damage and feels way less consistent to me. So usually you just want to stick with forward S2 since it leaves you closer, does more damage, and honestly feels a lot more consistent. Though in specific routes like with a space 3H, neutral S2 does indeed still have its place. Though with the follow-up of S2, you pretty much always want to make sure you're getting the wound debuff and the wall crumple whenever possible. If you've already done it once in the route though, you can indeed opt for a 6S2, 6S2 as it does a pretty respectable amount of damage. Not to mention, since it doesn't limit break, you can actually extend it with assists. Another note whenever it comes to the 6S2 follow-up is that it does give a good amount of corner carry and leaves you in a pretty good position to continue pressure. And one more thing that I think is pretty important to note whenever it comes to the 6S2 follow-up is the fact that it can indeed be dash canceled during Fury. For the most part, you're actually not going to get too much off of the dash cancel when you're in Fury, unless you combine it with another one of his S2 moves that's really strong in Fury. that being his down S2 or his projectile. Before we talk about just how strong it is in Fury, let's go ahead and talk about its other combo applications. Probably the main application you're going to have for this move outside of Fury is its utility during throw, as it's one of the only things Darius can true combo mid-screen from throw. And as you can see, it's the only move that Darius has that pops the opponent back up after an OTG state. If you combine this with certain assists, you can actually get some pretty high damage combos going, even off a mid-screen throw. But now we actually get into some of the broken stuff with down S2. When Darius is comboing someone, a lot of his moves put the opponent OTG, or on the ground. This is pretty tough to work with, as the only thing Darius can use to continue a combo OTG is his down S2. A move that's typically much too slow to be used in a combo, especially if the opponent's OTG. However, while Darius is in Fury, the dash cancels not only allow him to combo into 2S2, but also extend his combos with 2S2. Although this does a bit of a number on the hit stun scaling, this blows the door wide open for Darius to keep his combo going as if he had an assist to help him do so and take full advantage of the massive damage boost from the buff. Before I show you some combo examples, I have a confession. What I'm about to show you is the result of my addiction to the training mode of 2xKO, and the dopamine rush that comes with seeing a tiny number get higher and higher. For the first entire 2 weeks of the 2xKO closed beta, I was working tirelessly in the 2xKO Discord with the other Darius mains to create the monstrosity that is the 2xKO Darius combo wiki page. All of the combos I'm about to show you plus more are all on that page. And if you're curious to know what other characters' combos might look like, you can check out their combo pages as well. A ton of extremely dedicated players are working really hard to create the most optimal or sauciest combos you can think of, and then posting them on those combo pages. If you're willing to help out yourself, we're looking to have all hands on deck, both to continue to optimize and discover new combo routes, and also to just generally fill out the rest of the wiki. So whether that be discovering new combo routes for the unexplored character compositions, or just helping out by filling out data or pulling assets from the game. Links in the description below if you're willing to lend a hand. Without any further ado though, here are some of the best Darius combos on the 2xKO combo page. I hope you enjoy! Hey guys, thanks so much for sticking it through to the end. Once again, if you've been inspired or you think you can cook up something devious for the wikis, be sure to join the 2xko Discord and share it with everyone. Or, you know, you could just keep all that tech to yourself and just farm people who don't know about it. That's cool too, I guess. I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to everyone in the 2xko Discord that helped out with the wiki. It's much too often that these songs of praise go unsung for these pioneers of the meta, and I have a ton of respect for the players who volunteered to help push this game's meta. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know down in the comments below if there's any other concepts you want to see explored from 2xko. I myself have done a ton of theory crafting for Darius that I am eager to share with the world, and I hope you guys will handshake tag along for the ride. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.